Check-o! Born to roll! Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Born to Roam. I'm Luke Nil, and broadcasting live from the Nil House, one of the final broadcasts from the Nil House, undisclosed location in beautiful Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. As you can see, very, very proud to be joined by Mr. Drew Thomson.
Hello, I'm Drew Thomson from the Drew Thomson Foundation Instagram account. Hope you're all doing well.
No ear pods today, or AirPods.
No, I have them with me. Yeah, but I thought
I've got mine too. I was like, if you're gonna be wearing yours, I would be wearing mine.
Because I drove here. It's too hot to walk. I didn't want to get all sweaty on the walk over.
Yeah, it sucks when they get all sweaty, eh?
It does. I think I've got permanent liquid in my ear now. It feels. It's either that or tinnitus.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both.
It could be a bit of both. Yeah.
I have a sneaking suspicion that I'm like low key giving myself tinnitus with my AirPods because like I just find every time I leave the house, I'm like podcast in, and I'm walking around downtown. So there's trucks and stuff. I'm like, let's turn up the volume a little bit. And then like I get home and it feels like I just like played like a full concert without earplugs or anything. And I'm like, I was just listening to like Richard Dawkins talk shit.
I was just listening to Malcolm Gladwell for 3.5 hours.
It feels like I just left like a Motorhead concert.
Yeah. I'm the same. Like I've got them in all the time, probably out of my waking hours. I'd say like 60% of the day I've got earpods in. If I'm out of the house, even if I'm in the house.
Me too.
And my phone only has one volume setting and it's max. Yeah. But I'm listening to boring, like I don't listen to music really anymore. I just listen to audiobooks, podcasts. I'll listen to music once in a while. But I've hit that age where it's like I've listened to everything that I really like, and it's taken me a while to. No, that's not true. There's lots of new bands that I listen to, but for the majority of my walking and like hanging out, I'm listening to podcasts or audiobooks, and it's destroying my ear. I swear to God, it's destroying.
Just
my
hearing people like talking about bipartisan issues,
shit I really don't care about. Stuff that I zone out. But if I'm alone with my own thoughts for too long, that's worse.
For sure. Like walking around and having to actually think is fucking brutal.
Yeah, or like hear other people talk.
Yeah,
that I haven't chosen. To listen to.
Yeah, hearing the conversations in downtown Hamilton from the average upstanding citizen.
It's pretty wild. There was a fight in front of my apartment the other day that perked my attention, and I like poked my head out the window. I was like, "This isn't a podcast," there was a guy who was yelling, "I'll be back in 5 minutes," and he took off on his bike. This was in the morning. I was having my espresso and my toast, and I made a mental reminder to check back in 5 minutes. Check back in 5 minutes. The guy came, and he had something in a garbage bag, and he was riding his bike furiously down Barton Street East. This is a busy street, and he, in the middle of the street, jumps off his bike, leaves his bike in the middle of the road, causes a traffic jam. Whips off the garbage bag. It's a baseball bat, and he's charging at this guy with a baseball bat. I scurry down like a rat down my stairs with my phone because I'm like, I should evidence. And there's another older guy there, no garbage bag, but just like a 12-inch knife in an IRA t-shirt. And I was like,
my Lord,
this is going to be terrible.
Yeah, so it's not really good.
I'm shakily kind of like videotaping it, but going, hey, it's not worth it. And then like there's a construction site across the street, and a bunch of construction workers came over and like abruptly
intervened.
Yeah, but these guys, keep in mind, I should have said this before. These guys aren't young. These are senior citizens.
Yeah, these are
old guys.
Early bird special kind of guys.
Yeah, and I was like, shit. Sometimes real life is interesting. Not interesting. I felt bad for everybody involved, but like Hamilton's a wild place.
It is. It's also kind of like a reminder that there like people have fantasies about like through the passage of time that all of your issues will be resolved and you'll be a more mature and no, you're still gonna be driving down the street with a baseball bat.
If you told 20-year-old Drew Thomson that I'd be living the life I do now, he'd be, no, he's going to be successful.
Yeah.
I swear. The way I envisioned my life going was not this way.
Yes. There's that reminds me of that Guided by Voices line in that song, I Am a Scientist, when he says, I am a lost soul. I shoot myself with rock and roll. The hole I dig is bottomless, but nothing else can set me free.
Oh,
it's a great line.
It's a great line.
It's
a heavy line.
It hurts. It's so real. It hurts, dude.
Well, these are the lives that we've chosen.
Speaking of which, let's get into some of the kind of formative years for Mr. Drew Thomson and rock
Sure.
and roll. So you grew up around London, right?
Yeah.
London, Ontario?
Yeah.
And did you have like like when you think back, is there kind of, I'm sure it changes from day to day, like most people, but do you have like a moment or like when you were first became aware of music or rock and roll or anything like that?
Yeah.
A song?
It was puberty.
Okay.
I remember
Yes.
puberty hitting, and all of a sudden, like much music was a thing that instead of watching YTV, you just moved.
Yeah,
to
you hit one
music.
channel up, right? It was 21, 22?
No, in London it was 25, 29.
All right.
But I was raised with a single mom, and I lived with my grandparents most of a lot of my youth, and my grandma was always home. Mm-hmm. So we watched a lot of musicals together and things like that. She wasn't a fan of rock and roll music.
Mm-hmm. More like Oklahoma and stuff?
Of Singing in the Rain.
Yeah,
She's a huge Gene Kelly fan.
Nice.
But eventually, my mom and we moved out, and my mom got a boyfriend, and we moved in with him. And all of a sudden, my grandma wasn't there, like, watching over me all the time, and I discovered, like, much music and things like that. And I switched schools a lot. We moved quite a bit. And this new school that I went to, my friend Dylan, his aunt worked for Sony Music as like a promotions manager. So she would go from store to store to store, setting up CD racks and things like that, and CD promotions. And she would drop off all the CDs that she was done with, I guess, or whatever, to Dylan. And so we would sit there and listen to his like shit. And Dylan's dad played guitar for like a cover band in St. Thomas, Ontario. And together, Dylan, knowing Dylan, and our little friend group, we all kind of found skateboarding and music at the same time in like grade 6, 7-ish area. This was just before Tony Hawk Pro Skater came out. And like you were kind of ridiculed for skateboarding back then. Like you were kind of made fun of. It wasn't a cool thing. It was like right before it kind of hit mainstream, I guess, again. And Dylan would like trade those CDs his aunt would bring for like other shit. So if I had a shirt that he wanted and I wanted like the Beck Odelay CD, this is real. I traded him shit for like CDs all the time. So I'd get like Beck Odelay, Oasis, What's the Story, Morning Glory was one of my first CDs. Alanis Morissette, The Jagged Little Pill. Huge formative album for me. And I don't know if you remember like the Now compilations.
Oh yeah.
So I'd go to Costco with my grandma, and she would every once in a while pick me up a CD, and I'd get like the Now fucking thing or whatever. So it was very mainstream, early rock influence. Big Green Day fan, like Insomniac and Dookie, those years. And then this movie, That Thing You Do, came out.
Oh yeah.
My stepdad had an illegal cable box, so I watched the shit out of that movie and wanted to be a drummer. And we went to the school that I went to was like a pretty poor school in East London, and they didn't have a music program, but another school did, and we shared their school's music program. And so twice a week we would go to a different school. We'd get in fights with that school. Like it was super, very like outsider-esque, bullshit. Like,
Greasers and socias?
Kind of, yeah. Except we were from the Churchill School and they were Lord Nelson.
Okay.
And we'd get there early, play football and fight. And then I'd go in and play drums or whatever. But then my family moved again. And the next school that I went to, the fucking music teacher just wouldn't let me play drums. Like he didn't like me, I didn't like him. I was not terrible at drums, but I ended up taking up trombone, and like my mom had my sister at that point, and she didn't want a drum set in the house because my sister was very young. So that was the end of my drumming world. But that's what I always wanted to be, a drummer, very badly, and I've always been very hard on drummers because I'm jealous. They're so good.
It's a very enviable instrument, I think, for many reasons.
It's an excellent instrument. It's an excellent instrument.
It's the foundation.
It is the foundation. But that's kind of like what I remember, I guess, at the beginning of noticing music and things like that. I started a band in grade 7. We played an open mic, like talent show thing, assembly.
Yeah.
It was terrible.
Yeah.
Forgot all the words as soon as we got up there.
Yeah.
It was bad. I had an old Harmony Bobcat was my first guitar.
Yeah. Legit first guitar.
It was. My mom found it at a pawn shop.
Wow.
And picked it up for me. It was before they were like cool. But Dylan had a Strat. Wow. So he made fun of me a lot for having that Bobcat.
Now who's laughing?
Yeah. The arm, at some point, the arm just like, the neck just fucking snapped off of it.
Oh.
And I had to put it back together with wood glue.
Okay.
And it still is on there today.
Still works?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
The intonation's pretty fucked up.
Yeah.
But
it's more of a decorative piece. But
yeah.
And so when you played your first show, were you playing originals?
No, we were playing Green Day covers.
Nice.
Yeah, but I had written an original in grade 7.
Do you remember what it was called?
It was about getting old.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was terrible. I think it was called like "What Are You Gonna Be" or something like that. Yeah, it was like not good.
Yeah. Sounds like a Westerberg title, kind of.
It could have been. I had no idea of him back then.
Yeah.
I think it was like, "What are you gonna be when you get old?" What do you? No, I'm not gonna.
Yeah. Okay. So, in terms of kind of going off of the beaten path of readily available music, and I guess what Much Music and compilations were kind of giving you, when was your first introduction into the kind of less explored, more, I guess, dare I say, alternative music?
I think like, the wedge on Much Music was always a big thing. That introduced me to bands like The Streets and the Avalanches that I still really adore today. When I moved just outside of London and went to this high school called Medway, I went to Ireland with my dad for a couple weeks that summer. And when I was away, my mom moved houses from East London to just outside London. And this is like the weekend before high school started. So I ended up going to this high school where I didn't know anybody. I didn't even know the town that we moved to existed. I'd never heard of this high school. And I ended up gravitating towards this kid named Braden, who we shared a couple classes with. And his sister was really into like the Fat Records catalog.
Okay.
Lagwagon, all of that stuff. He had an older sister, and she introduced us to that. I knew of Lagwagon from a 411 Australia skate video before that, but that was my only introduction to like bands in that world. And she showed us all of that stuff, like the Fat Rec comps, and through that just was opening the door to all the other music that I kind of got into. My neighbor in Kamoka, the little town that we moved to, he introduced me to like college radio down the line. I ended up taking an internship at the university radio station, CHRW, which opened my eyes to a bunch of new music. It was just not a very unique path. It was just one thing led to another, led to another, led to another. I've always been very interested in like good lyricists and interesting tunes. So I don't really have a favorite genre. I just like a good song. Yeah. Like a good song to me is, I don't care what music's behind it. I want to hear the poetry behind it. I want to hear the impact of the lyrics and the way they're delivered. So I really like a lot of hip hop, and I think maybe when I was younger, I thought I wasn't supposed to like hip hop because I was into guitar music, and there was like still that rival. Like it's so dumb to think about now, but there was still like a rivalry back then.
Exactly what you're talking about.
Between it, I remember at one point in my life picking up a Puff Daddy CD and picking up a Green Day CD and like I must have been in grade 7 or 8 and being like, oh, which path am I going to take here?
Yeah.
And I
took
the
red pill or the blue pill.
I took Nimrod.
Nice.
Stupidest move.
Yeah. You could have been a rich rapper right now.
God. Imagine that.
I think the guitar. I think choosing a guitar is a specific path. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
I'll
Absolutely,
leave it at that,
for sure.
And then so kind of going through a few bands and stuff. Where do we pick up the trail in terms of the origins of Single Mothers? Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but were you a real estate agent before Single Mother started or during the beginning?
Yeah, I was going into, I got out of college. I kind of dropped out, kind of graduated. I think I graduated.
Depends who you ask.
Yeah, like I graduated a program, not the program like I was supposed to do. I was working at a bank in London. I was playing in, do you know Mike Riley?
Yeah, of course.
I was playing in Mike Riley's a fantastic songwriter, good friend of mine, Mike Riley.
Shout out to Mike Riley, one of the funniest guys alive.
What's his fucking Instagram? It's so stupid. I think it's called Coast Rock King on Instagram if you want to check him out. I was playing guitar in one of his bands. Now, I never intended to be a guitar player. I wanted to be a drummer. But I had a guitar, so I was never a very good guitar player. I can manage in the realm of like pop rock or whatever. But I was playing guitar for Mike. He's very difficult to be in a band with. Very militant band leader, driven, and I respect him somewhat for that take on being in a band. Anyways, I think he kicked me out.
Yeah,
I think he kicked me out for not being very good at guitar. And so I was working at a bank. I heard about severance pay. And I got fired from that bank and got severance pay. And for that summer, I was kind of coasting around. And then my money ran out. And I was trying to figure out what to do next. I was watching a lot of HGTV with my grandma. I was still going to my grandma's all the time and getting her groceries and things like that. And I was like, fuck, maybe being a real estate agent would be right up my alley. Like, you drive around all day. You're not in an office. Got no real boss. I hate having a boss. That's one thing like I can't deal with is having somebody telling me what to do all the time. It's that might be a dumb thing to say, but I won't do it. I just won't. I'd rather live in the gutter than have a boss. So I was like, all right, you know what? I'll do this thing. I'm pretty much on my own. And I started working for this company, Remax. A plethora of problems in the real estate industry. There's a lot of drug problems and drinking problems in the music industry. It's rampant.
Really?
In the London, Ontario
real
student
estate
housing,
scene?
real estate scene, fucking terrible.
Wow,
so
I never knew.
The guy that, I won't name names here because he's still working, but the guy that I was working under, like as the broker, who was kind of my boss, but not really my boss. I was a commission worker, so he just left me alone. But he had terrible cocaine addiction, terrible alcohol addiction, and he hired a lot of alcoholics too. And one of the guys that he hired started letting himself into vacant properties all the time. And I was renting out student properties amidst taking my my real estate license courses. And I was renting out properties pretty quickly. And this guy was letting himself into properties that I had rented out.
Oh, wow.
And I had rented one to my friend for the summer. And at the night he was moving in, he found this guy passed out on the living room floor of the apartment and called me up. He's like, Drew, what the fuck, man? Like, there's somebody in my house. And I went, oh my God, does he look like a drunk? Does he look like a drunk divorcee? And he's like, yeah, he does. I was like, don't call the cops. I'll be right there. And I wake this guy up and I'm like, hey, what the hell are you doing? And he gets up, drops his pants, and then starts just pissing on the floor, like right in front of this guy. And he's calling his dad. His dad's a lawyer, and he passes the phone to me. He's like, is this Drew Thomson of blah, 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 Remax, whatever? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, well, I'm going to tell you this right now. You're going to get a lawsuit in the morning. You're going to refund my son. And I was like, all right, yeah, I'll refund him right now. So I went to the bank. I took my own cash out, gave it to this guy. I was like, listen, I'm sorry. You'll find a place. Went to my the guy that
we'll take that.
The
out.
broker.
We'll take that out, yeah.
The broker the next day, and I went, you got to fire this guy because like he's causing me so many headaches. He's causing you headaches, and he wouldn't fire him. So I just like quit that day.
Wow.
And I went, this isn't worth it. And it was crazy money. Like it's wild commissions. Like even to just rent is crazy commissions. But I was doing stuff I don't think I was supposed to be doing, like open houses and things like that as I was getting my license. So I quit that job and kind of walked over to this bar, Winks, that we all went to in London. And kind of like that night just started Single Mothers because I'd given up on music because Mike Riley kicked me out of the band.
End of the line.
Yeah, I had a girlfriend and I was like, okay, you know what? This is just like, music's over for me. I don't care. Then a girlfriend broke up, quit the job and went, now's as good a time as any to bleach my hair and start a band. And so I did. And I went on a kind of a crazy tear there for a bit that just a bit of a bender. I was drinking way too much. And I had a downtown apartment right across the street from the bars, which was a bad idea. And kind of whoever was at the table at Winks that night started Single Mothers with me. And that's how the terrible beginning of a very long and drawn out band. Yeah. Started like a phoenix in the ashes.
That is hilarious.
Yeah.
So now, I mean, I'm not sure about, it kind of depends on what you want to touch on in terms of in Single Mothers, but you guys how long after this kind of formation do you guys do Wild Party EP?
So I think that would have been in like 2008. And then we did Wild Party in late 2009, early 2010, somewhere around there. We did an EP before Wild Party I don't think anybody's heard.
What was it called?
I don't think it even had a name.
Oh.
It just had like 3 or 4 songs on it. It had this song, Welcome Home, Michigan, Bad Guy. And it was more of like a country punk thing. That's what it kind of started. The band kind of started more as like a folky country, alt country punk thing. And kind of as more and more people filtered through the band, it took on this other sound that really had very little to do with me. Eventually I just stepped back as better guitar players than I entered the band. I just went, you know what, you guys do it. I'll just yell over it. Yeah. And I'll sing over it and we'll figure that out. Or I think maybe Peterson was like, you shouldn't play guitar. I can't, it was a mixture of like maybe somebody suggesting that I don't play guitar anymore. And me going, you know what, maybe I won't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Internal and external forces led the guitar out of your hands.
For sure.
Yeah.
But when I did play guitar, it was a different band.
Yeah.
And like we would trash our equipment. Like I would throw my guitar after every show. I would whip my guitar at the wall. Like it was very much more like I was going for a very like replacemency, like fuck it all, let it burn rock and roll thing rather than like a punk thing that it ended up being. Like we never really considered ourselves a punk band until I think we had our manager was just like, you got to call it something. You just call it punk. And we're like, all right, it's a big enough umbrella. We'll just call it punk then. But I never really intended it to be a punk band. I wanted it to be like a rock and roll band at that time.
Have you ever had any kind of regrets about labeling yourself punk? Like at that, like choosing a kind of nomenclature to hang above it?
It's definitely stuck more than I thought it would.
Yeah.
At the time, it was just like, well, you got to call it. People don't know how to classify it. And at the time, we weren't really a rock and roll band, a punk band, a hardcore band. We're a bunch of people with very different musical tastes coming together and making whatever we were making. I don't think there's anything wrong with being called a punk band, but I think it might turn off people from that just think punk is like, punk is dumb or whatever, and turn off from listening to it. But I mean, if you could get away with not classifying something, I would definitely have rather done that. But people are just going to call you whatever they're going to call you.
Yeah, people need labels.
Yeah,
people need even in the. I guess, I was going to say, like, even in the post record store world, there are still record stores, and please go support them. But
they're online.
Yeah, they're on. Like Spotify and Apple Music, they can't just be like, here's the music. Like they need some kind of lines of
for
division.
The algorithm.
Yeah, exactly.
But what's interesting is like the genres are becoming so fucking specific. Yeah. Like there's so much division in one genre. It's like you've got, the posts, for instance, like you've got the post-punk, the post-punk, like the post-hardcore punk. It's just like you could go down that line. Oh, it's the post-alternative punk hardcore. Yeah. It's like, but that's how humans are built. We're built to classify a division. Yeah, exactly.
For better or for worse. So moving along in the chronology here. So you guys record the ST in 2010 or 2011?
I think we originally released it in 2011. I was up north already by then.
Yeah.
So I think we would have recorded, I don't remember exactly when we recorded it, but it would have been, late 2010, early 2011, somewhere around there.
And then you recorded it, and then the band broke up, right?
Yeah.
Is that the chronology?
Yeah. So we recorded it. So after Real Estate, went on a bit of a bender, lost all the money that I had, took out a line of credit, lost all that money. I was just like, also trying to get the band going too. And like, it's not cheap trying to, like, the little things all add up with the band, especially when you're, 23 or whatever, 24, and just trying to pull at strings. So I had lost all my money. I think my hydro was cut at that point. I didn't know how I was going to pay my rent.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, fuck. And my dad called me about going up north to do prospecting for my aunt and uncle. And I was like, okay, I'm going to go for like a couple weeks, and that'll make some money, and I'll come back. And it didn't turn out that way, and ended up going up for like a few years. And in between that, it's 10 hours from London. And I was like, guys, I can't make it back, like for shows or whatever. Like
it's too far away.
Yeah. So I said, I think they were pretty pissed at me, but I was like, you guys just do the band without me. Play the rest of the shows without me. And if you want to keep going, just keep going. And I'm going to be a prospector.
Yeah.
This is my life now. This is me.
Yeah.
I'm doing this now.
Yeah.
And so when I was still up there, we were mixing it. I remember being up north, hearing the mixes back, and we finished it. Yeah, while I was up north, they played a few more shows, and we basically like announced the band breaking. I think we announced the band breaking up the same time we released the 4 songs or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then the 4 songs kind of kept catching on, and we were like, okay, well, maybe I'll come down for like a show or whatever. I'll come down. Because back then I had to take a train, like a 10-hour train ride.
Oh my God.
Because I didn't have a car at that point.
You're like in Siberia.
It was super, super weird. It was a very weird time in my life. I treasure it. But so I think I came down, we played a couple shows, and that would be it. And things just kind of kept rolling with that 7-inch. Yeah, and it took a life of its own. And I got to Jeremy Boehm, and he offered to put it out. And like, we had labels hitting us up, and it was a very odd time. And we were like, well, should we give this a try? I mean, like, I was like, I put all of this time and effort into getting this band off the ground. Should I give it a try, or do I want to be up north alone in the woods the rest of my life? And I was like, well, if I'm ever going to have a chance, now is that chance. So we got back together, and we're like, okay, let's give it a shot. Like,
was there that is such a fascinating turn of events and changing of circumstances from basically having your hydro cut and being not forced, but like really incentivized to go prospecting up north because that you've kind of run out of options locally, and then having this kind of last pull at the handle hit the jackpot essentially.
Yeah.
It's such an interesting set of circumstances that most people can only dream of. I mean, and there's a couple things that I've heard about this period. I'd love to hear you confirm or deny them. Is it true that Jeremy sent that email to you guys and it sat in your inbox for like quite a while before somebody checked it?
I think what happened was we met. We had an offer. This was before I moved up north. We had an offer to open for Touche Amore in Hamilton.
Oh, wow.
At the old Absinthe.
Oh, wow.
And I had no idea who they were. I wasn't into hardcore at all at that point. I was listening to like the Hold Steady and the Replacements, and that's like all I listened to basically. But I took it, and I was like, all right, well, yeah, I'll take it. And I thought they were like a French band from Montreal.
Yeah.
And I was working with our old drummer at the time. We took that show, met Jeremy, gave him Wild Party and our band email. And I think he tried to hit us up a few times about Wild Party. None of us knew the password to the email. We ended up getting locked out of the email account, forgetting about it. And just, completely forgot and never checked it really. And then eventually Matt went to a Touche Amore show in Toronto and gave him a burnt copy of the self-titled EP. And he's like, this is what I think Matt said was like, yeah, I guess he's been trying to get a hold of us. And like he said, he's emailed us and we never emailed him back or something. And I was like,
what?
Yeah. And then I remembered, we have a Gmail.
We have a Gmail that we never checked.
Yeah. It was really dumb.
Okay, so that confirmed that one. Okay, what about this one? So I remember hearing a story also about the original. So the actual sound of the ST is quite distinct in terms of its like overall, like it's a unique sounding recording. It's extremely distorted and very, very compressed in a very pleasing way. If you like rock music, it's a special recording. But was there? I heard that that happened in mastering. Correct? Was that more of a mastering?
I don't know.
Or I guess what the actual question that I wanted to ask was there a more intensely crushed version, and then it had to get pulled back a little bit because everybody else in the band was like, this sounds like fucking white noise, and you were like, no, this sounds great, and you had to reach a compromise of it being pulled back a bit.
There was a much crazier, I think there were 2 other crazier versions that they sent. And I was up north, and I think my first instinct was like, whoa, I don't like this. And then I listened to it a few more times, and I was like, oh, actually, this is fucking sick. This is super, super sick. And I don't remember if it was me that wanted to keep, like, I don't remember a whole lot from that time. But I remember us going back and forth, and we ended up agreeing, like, all right, maybe we could meet, like, a little bit somewhere in the middle and have it. Because it was, like, you couldn't hear anything.
Yeah, it was pretty blown out.
Every once in a while, you'd hear, like, and like a guitar here or there, but like I think we recorded it pretty clean, and there's some guitar stuff that you can't hear on that 7-inch that Mike played. Yeah, we ended up cleaning it up a little bit. Yeah, we ended up cleaning it up, like 2 versions of cleanup, I'm pretty sure, and that's what we ended up with.
I heard the original, like I guess like the bed tracks or like the raw tracks. Bouchard actually showed them to me about 3 years ago.
Does he have them?
He has them. Yeah, you should get those off him. But I was blown away because it was unrecognizable from like the final product in like a way that I just it was such an interesting thing to hear because, you know, I, like many people have, you know, are very, very fond and attached to that recording, and like to hear what it started out as is such an interesting and cool thing. Hearing how, because I totally know what you mean about all the things that you don't actually hear on the final product that are just part of the greater like bludgeoning of distortion on the final product.
I don't know who decided to get Ian and
is it Kenny?
Ian and Kenny, on that, but it definitely like brought a lot of character. Yeah. That I don't think any of us were expecting. When we recorded it at the London Music Hall with Simon LeCharette before he had his studio Sugar Shack or whatever. And like we did the bass in the bathroom. Christian Girls lyrically was completely different when we went in to record it. Like I forget what the lyrics were, but the pattern, everything was completely different. I ran through it the way that I had written it. I was all hungover. I didn't even want to be there. I was doing it like on a stage, and they were up in like the control room or whatever, because it was a venue that we recorded.
Yeah.
And I went back and I was like, hey, how was that? And they're like, I don't know. And I was like, it sucks, doesn't it? And they're like, it's not the best. And I was like, oh shit. And they were like, do you have anything else like you can try? And I was like, I don't know. And I flipped through my notebook for a second, and I saw this line, like, it's not a habit, it's a hobby, that I'd written down. And I was like, all right, let me just try something here. And I like pretty much spitballed that whole song, like within a couple takes. And it was like, the whole process of that 7-inch is so weird. I think we could never redo it if we wanted to. Like, it was just too off the cuff and strange.
It's like a bunch of colliding random events.
And I don't think we ever paid for it. I don't know. I don't think we ever actually ended up paying the $200 or whatever it cost.
It cost to record it.
Maybe somebody did. Maybe. I don't remember, but I'm sure I went back up. I'm sure I arrived with no money. I don't think we ever. I'm sorry if we never paid for it.
That is, I didn't know that you guys were like separated like that in the venue recording it. That's super interesting.
We did I wasn't there for the drums. I remember in Winter Coats they did this like. That intro part, that wasn't part of the song. Like I think Matt found a ladder and recorded it on a ladder. This weird pattern thing, and eventually it ended up. And I remember showing up and being like, "Oh, that's cool, that's neat." That's how little I was there for the music part of it. Yeah, but when I was doing the vocals, I was on the stage in the main room. And they were like upstairs, but the rest of it, I'm not sure how they recorded it. But it was, I wouldn't have been live.
Well, I guess that's a good. We'll deviate from the chronology here because that's one thing I always like picking your brain about. Out of anyone that I've ever met in the rock and roll world, I don't think there's anybody that can work better on the spot than you. Like in a studio setting, it is.
Well, thank you.
And I'm not exaggerating or anything. It's not just because we're friends, but I am serious. But everybody that I know that's ever worked with you too has remarked about the same thing, that you're fat. That even if you don't even have an idea, once the tape starts rolling, you're on, and that's something that's quite awesome and very it's rare. When it comes to working and writing, are you more of a guy that kind of wants to be under pressure, or do you like taking your time with things? Do you like both, or does it depend on what kind of music you're making?
I definitely don't like taking my time with things. I learned early on that the more I work on something, generally the worse I find the outcome. Like I have little spurts, and if it's not good at first, I very rarely make it better. So like with lyrics and stuff like that, I'll do small edits here and there, but lyrically, for music stuff, if there's a good song behind it, like ideas just start flowing. If it's a bad song and I can't think of something, then I'm screwed. Like I just can't. And the more I work on stuff, like there's a lot of songs that we've done where usually within the first 20 seconds, 15, 10, if I can come up with an idea, if it's like a good single mother song.
Yeah.
And if I can't think of something within like 20 or 30 seconds, that song is kind of dead in the water for me. Like I could work on it for a long time, but I very rarely have ever been happy with the outcome. So it's just like if I try and surround myself with musicians that inspire me and write stuff that inspires me. And as long as like that works out, ideas come really quick. And I've just always been, all of our songs are very like stream of consciousness, and I don't think that was ever on purpose. It was just, that's just how I work. I have a huge amount of respect for somebody that can sit there and compose a great piece of writing and take time and be careful with it. That's just not how I do it.
Yeah.
And that's just how I do it. I don't know.
Yeah. It's not something.
Can't. Yeah.
It's just your process.
Yeah, that's it. Like, you know, I definitely have gone back. There's a few things where like I'll listen to a song and be like, you know what? I wish I maybe step back from that and like change this line or change that line. But for the most part, like all of the early stuff was just right away, first ideas. And I think like learning to trust yourself is a very hard thing to do.
Yeah.
I never thought of it that way. It's like, it's done.
Yeah, it's done.
It's on here. Well, on to the next one.
It's rock and roll.
Yeah, exactly. Even at home where it's like, okay, if I'm writing a song and I don't have an idea right away and I'm writing it, it's done. I'm like, I'm never going to come up with something that I like for this song. And I just scrap it because it's not worth chasing it for me.
You can just come up with something else to work on.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, I mean, in some ways, it's like a beat maker and the actual rapper. And you kind of feel if a track is vibing for you, you're not our next track, or when it comes to playing with other musicians and even perhaps yourself as well.
Yeah, totally. That's exactly it.
And in, do you, obviously musically quite different Foundation versus Single Mothers, but is there any kind of real, is there a dichotomous approach between those two projects, or do you find a lot of crossover in your approach for both?
For Foundation, it's definitely like I'm definitely leaning on a different set of influences. Like Single Mothers, I've always at the core, Single Mothers is a mix between the Whole City, the Replacements, minus the Bear, Conor Oberst, and like, I don't know, there's one maybe band that could be a variable that goes in. Like those, to me, that's like that collection of influences is what I consider Single Mothers to be. I'm letting all my secrets out. But for Foundation, it's just a different version. It's just like a different timeline for me, where it's like I grew up also loving the old 97s and like Third Eye Blind and like pop rock acts. And that's definitely what I like lean on for that. And for Foundation, where I write a lot more of the music, those songs come together on acoustic guitars, you know, sitting on the couch, just humming and like playing a few of my favorite chords over and over. And all the songs are just G, C, D, E, F. And those are the best chords.
Those are the best chords.
Why mess with it?
Yeah. Leave it alone.
Exactly. And if I like strum a chord and I have an idea, I'll sit there and I'll just, pound out the song. Like, I think all of those songs came the same way as Single Mothers do, where it's, I think Pace Yourself, I wrote the day before we recorded the first EP. And it was just like, that song came together in 5 minutes. Most of those songs all came together in under 10 minutes. And I've got a whole folder of ones that I've been working on for a year that I'll never finish, because that's just not how I roll.
It's hard to go back to things for you?
It's very hard to go back to things.
It's kind of like you need to get it down while it's there, and then...
Yeah, totally. Like,
cancel plans if you need to, but get the thing done.
Yeah, it has to come all at once, or I don't have the personality and the focus, I think, to go back and work on things. Like, since this quarantine thing happened, I've been using this program Ableton, and I think I've done 53 songs in the last 3-4 weeks. But like, a bunch of them are ones that I'm like, okay, I'll come back to this and I'll finish it tomorrow. And the next day instead of going back, I'll just start something new.
Yeah.
And be like, all right, this one, I'm never going to finish this one. This is...
Yeah. It's like, I'm going to fold that laundry later.
Yeah. No, I'll just wait till we have to put more stuff in the dryer.
Yeah, exactly.
Peter Landy, my buddy, our friend. He's a great songwriter. Yeah, and he'll tinker with a song for, a while until it's right. And I have a real respect for people that do that. And you guys too. I know you guys put a lot of time and effort into like structures and making sure it's right. Yeah. I just don't have that patience. And I think, like, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but I don't know.
There are many ways to get it together. And like, it's, so I think, coming from, the kind of longer paced latter category, as I do, I definitely envy at times like the position of being able to accomplish a lot in a short amount of time. And especially when I look at it through the context of a lot of my favorite music was made that way. Like, there's no romanticism to me in tinkering endlessly, even though that's my process, is that like and us, like our band, will bash away for a year on a crop of tunes. Not all at the same time. Obviously, they all come in and out, and some take a long time, some come really quick. But there's no, like, that doesn't. I love the replacements will band, like Paul can show a song, be like, here's how the song goes, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, and they start the tape, and Bob Stinson will just do his thing, and you'll hear it different every single time.
Yeah.
You're thankful that they captured that one take that they did. And,
it's true.
I
mean, that's just me though. Like, when we did Negative Qualities, I know Mike P did like 2 weeks of guitar or something.
Yeah,
he did a ton of guitar. And then I remember, like, Half Lit, we had to do vocals for it, and like, I didn't have an idea. And then he went out to get lunch, and I wrote the lyrics and finished the song while he was out for lunch. And that's a song he worked for like 2 weeks, on and off on doing. And I felt like I wasn't pulling my weight almost, because I was like, oh, it's done now. And
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
What do you mean it's done? I was like, yeah, it's done.
Yeah.
Like, go listen to it. And it was fine, but I was like, it doesn't, sometimes when you do things fast, it feels like it's sloppy.
You've gotten off too light. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, and that can sometimes cause a divide in a band a little bit too.
Yeah. For sure.
It's not like we went and like, we recorded Negative Qualities 2 times. And it was like, it's not like we all worked super fast. I think it was just like, a lot of thought and energy went into that album. Whereas like Through a Wall, we recorded in 4 days, like no click.
Very
off the floor.
spontaneous.
Like, Ian Romano just bammed it out. And we've definitely gone through different ways
processes
of doing things in this band, which I think is fun for me. I don't know if it's fun for the listener,
Yeah.
but for me, I'm like, oh, let's just see how it's one big experiment at all times.
Yeah. It's a constantly, I mean, you're kind of going through different things and, seeing what works best and try. I mean, and like, it's got to be fun to kind of do a different batch of songs in a different environment and see how it feels, and let the process be dictated by, who's involved at the time. And,
It's definitely fun having different people involved all the time. Like you've been in the band in and out. Like it's I don't know. It's weird.
I fucking love it.
It's weird times.
When you look back at this point, is there anything like that in the single mother's world that stands out to you so far as like a high watermark for you creatively or the band creatively? I mean, obviously they all have their own unique characters and characteristics, but is there anything that that really stands out to you at this kind of vantage point, having had the band for about 10 years now or so, or 9 years?
Yeah. It has been, what year is it? 2020?
2020,
It's been it's been on and off for a while.
Greatest year of all time.
I mean, there's been so many ups and downs. Like going to the UK and playing like festivals in the UK was always super cool. Experiences that I've always liked. They're like played this. Pukkelpop was honestly, I don't remember anything.
That's
about
one of my
Pukkelpop,
favorite shows of all time.
That's for another time.
Yeah. That's for the book.
Yeah. Got to leave something.
Available in fine bookstores in about, I don't know, a couple years or so. We'll see. Yeah.
I don't know though, because like it was, Single Mothers was always such a shared experience with like everybody else who was always involved. But there was like, I think at the beginning, just getting people outside of our city interested in the band was like mind blowing.
The coolest thing ever.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it, because like Single Mothers was always to me just going to be a local band. Like it was, that's why I left it. I was like, I remember talking to Mike Riley and being like, this isn't going anywhere. It's not going to do anything. No one gives a shit about what I write. No one gives a shit about us. Like when the rest of the band was mad, I was like, why? I'm doing you a favor. Like I'm letting you out of this. You don't have to fucking waste time doing this anymore. No one likes this stuff. And then when people started to, I was like, oh my God, this is weird. So I think back then it was just like there was so much excitement. You mix that with booze and, 4 guys that all had very different interpretations of success and like what they wanted to do with the band. Like I had wanted to be a musician for so long. I had a very specific way I wanted to do it. I was like, we're going to do it this way. I've seen so many bands break up and like fuck everything up by just not doing this properly. Let's just do it this way. And I had my own rules, and trying to enforce those rules ended up like being the thing that ruined the band. Like, you know what I mean? Like I did it backwards in there. But I think festival slots are still, whenever I see a festival or like if we get accepted or asked to do a festival, I'm always like, that to me is just a pinnacle of like a successful band. I'm like, oh fuck yeah.
It's always a good time.
Yeah. I really like Reading and Leeds was a big highlight for my career. I say that lightly, my career, but that was one thing that I wanted to do, and we got to do it. And I was like, okay, this is cool. This is great.
That was a highlight of my own personal career as well. This was a great time.
That was a fun tour.
Yeah. 5 years ago now, almost.
Jesus,
September 2015. Yeah.
It flies by.
It does, eh?
Does
half a
not seem
decade.
that way.
Half a decade since the All-Star Fantasy Draft Single Mothers
That
tour.
was a fantastic lineup. This band has gone through a lot of lineups, but that was a fun, fantastic one.
That was a very fun one. I also distinctly have a memory of that on the Quicksand tour.
Oh, yeah.
Of us sitting in the back of a van in Minneapolis. And I think for some reason I was wearing mascara, and we were talking about how cool it was. Because I think I saw a picture of Paul Westerberg on the wall, and he had worn mascara during the Let It Be era. Yeah. And we were sitting in the van, and that was one of the first like I am living the dream moments that I ever had in rock and roll. This is the beginning of I was 22, and we were at what for me would be my mecca, and probably yours as well. Absolutely. Minneapolis, Minnesota at First Avenue.
Still love playing Minneapolis. I still love playing 7th Street Entry.
7th Street Entry is the best.
So good. That too, that was a very big highlight. I think that was the second time we ever played Minneapolis, but the first time we ever played First Street or 7th Street. Like I think the first time we ever played Minneapolis was in a house party.
Oh yeah.
And I was still like, what the fuck?
And we did, because that time we did First Avenue proper.
Yeah.
I remember I was like standing on the stage and like just gushing. I was like playing some Replacements riffs, and this really kind of nice but giant Midwestern dude comes out of the corner. He's like, "You like the Replacements?" And I'm like, "I love the Replacements." He's like, "I used to do sound for the Replacements." I'm like, "Dude, please tell me about the replacements. He's like, he was, you and I remember we were just like ripping stories out of this guy, and he was talking about all the funny things that they were doing. And that was a significant memory of mine in my time in rock and roll. That was a good time. And then again at Reading and Leeds, when we were watching, we played and we smashed it, and then we watched Refused from the side stage. It was like, this is pretty cool. This is a pretty good rock and roll moment right here.
That was a fun rock and roll.
That tent.
Poor TM. That guy. Simon did not like us.
Shout out to Simon.
Yeah.
I remember Simon got us like this like cube of hash.
Yeah.
And I
Justice.
And so yeah, Justice really wanted hash. So we got this hash from Simon, and I remember I was responsible for the hash. And there was still like actually surprisingly quite a bit of it left when we were like when we were like wrapping up the tour and leaving the UK, and we were like, Simon's dropping us off at the airport, and Simon's a lovely Scottish bloke, as they say, and shout out to Simon. I hope you're listening right now. But I pulled this Lego-sized piece of like Afghan hash when we were like in the queue parking or like the drop-off area of Heathrow Airport, London Heathrow, and Simon lost his shit, and he's just, I remember him, I'll just simply remember him turning around and be like, I'm about to lose my shit.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, fine. Like, and I just like looked at him and I smiled and I just ate the cube of hash. And I'm like, it won't affect me. And then like we get through customs and I'm just like, just walking and like sitting in the chair. You guys are like, are you good? I'm like, dude, I'm really good. But like, just I need some space. Just
I don't remember you eating that.
I ate the brick, and I had a very mellow.
You're
ride
a
home.
drug mule.
I was
at that point.
Yeah. So don't
Right?
don't ever do that. And drugs are bad and all that stuff. But that did happen.
That's funny.
Maybe I made that story.
Didn't they lose your guitars on that tour? The air fucking.
Oh, that was the worst thing ever.
We didn't gate check them.
Okay, but the other thing too was we didn't fly direct.
We flew from fucking Paris or stuff.
Yeah, we flew to.
Yeah.
We took the weirdest flight there.
I didn't book that. That was still when we had a manager. Yeah.
Love him. Love Popjoy.
Yeah, Popjoy's great.
Popjoy. We booked it so that we weren't flying directly to London. It was 2 flights, and by the time we got to London, and I remember because it was my first time flying with guitars ever, and I brought a couple nice guitars.
It was the custom.
I brought my standard, and I lent Justice a Strat. And I remember we asked the lady at the airport. We're like, okay, so we're good. We don't need to like pick up. I just had no concept of how this worked.
Yeah,
it was my first time flying.
We should have gate checked them. Like, is what
we didn't gate check them, and like she's like, "Don't worry, they're gonna be there." And we get there, they are not there. Like, and they're like, "We have no idea what you're talking about." And I remember like meeting Simon and be like, "Simon, your first order of business, find my guitars." And Simon's just like, okay, I'm on it. He's like, I sent the email. I'm like, that's it?
Call.
There's nothing else you can do.
This is a telephone conversation.
And I'm like, Simon, what happens if they've lost my guitars? And Simon goes, well, then they'll probably tell you shouldn't have brung them. And I'm like, thank you for that great piece of wisdom. And eventually, okay, so we won't go into full detail about the Pukkel Pop show, but I will mention this detail of the Pukkel Pop show. It was our first gig of the biggest show that I had ever played, and probably you had ever played in terms of like biggest stage. And we hadn't played a show as this lineup yet altogether. And we show up at this festival. We don't have guitars. And we are basically on this massive stage, and we're, again, never played on such a big stage before. We're plugging into these amps that we've never seen before or anything, and we are being lent guitars from the band that has just gone on, and we're borrowing these guitars.
Yeah.
And we're all like, in my mind, we're like a kilometer away from each other on the stage.
So,
like nobody can
huge
see
stage.
like nobody can actually like acoustically hear each other. It's the first time I had ever been on a stage where like you were 100% in the hands of your monitor, where like you can't hear what the other guy is doing. It's too big and it's outside. You can hear the snare maybe, but like once your own amp starts, you can't hear anything. So you got to really try and dial in your monitors. And for those who are who are unfamiliar with single mothers music, it's very fast and very percussive and very syncopated music. It's not. It is really dependent on being tight to sound good. In other words, but
very rarely sounds good.
Yeah,
very rarely.
And that day, it did not. But it was
like 2 p.m.
Yeah, it was like 2 p.m. And I just remember we were strapped on these guitars. It was just like, okay, let's do it. And we had practiced a bunch. I was feeling really good, and all of it just like it was like I was 12 years old again. Like I just we as a band I don't think that you've ever it could be on Catatonic Youths, like that a video of that, like a supercut of that, including me dropping this guitar that somebody has just lent me. I caught it before it hit the deck, but nothing makes you feel dumber than trying to pull a cool rock move and dropping a guitar. So I caught the guitar though. It was okay. I also remember that when we started the festival, it was a packed tent. And when we were done the festival, there was 200 people in this 1,000-person tent or 2,000. It was
I remember getting a call from Pobjoy later that day, and he was like, "What the fuck did you do? What were you thinking?" And I was like, "I don't know." I was so fucking out of it. I was like, I don't know, dude. Yeah, he's like, "You're never going to be allowed back there." And I said, "Well, they shouldn't have booked us in the first place."
Yeah, it's their fault.
I mean, because we had that flight. I don't remember much from that day, but I remember getting off the flight, your stuff missing, getting a bunch of ciders, drinking on an empty stomach, and then some other band from Canada walking around backstage with a big bottle of whiskey.
Oh, it was Preoccupations.
Yeah, and just drinking out of their bottle of whiskey until we went on, and then this is why I don't drink anymore.
It was the perfect storm of. It was
it was good. It was a good set.
Let's
just leave it at that.
It was a really good set.
It was a very interesting set.
Out of all the sets I've ever played in my life, if I could get my hands on a video, if anybody out there has a video of Single Mothers live at 2015 Pukul Pop, I will pay you $100.
I'll pay you more to destroy it.
Yeah. But anyways, we'll go into the full details about that set in our tell-all book.
It was an interesting time for sure.
By the end of that tour, we were awesome though.
That was the first tour too. We threw that together. That was after the big change in the band.
Yeah.
That was I was determined to do that tour because I really, really wanted to do Reading and Leeds.
It was insane
really,
booking.
It was cool. We never got asked to play Pukul Pop again.
God bless.
It's their loss.
God bless Pukul Pop. Yeah.
Did you guys play Pukul Pop?
No, not yet. I mean,
it's not worth it.
We did Gross Rock.
I would love to do Gross Rock.
That's a good festival.
Yeah. I would love to do any festival in Germany. Where's Gross Rock? Is that Germany? Belgium?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to go back and do. Yeah, we did 2,000 Trees last year, and
that's a great festival.
That's a great festival. I really, really enjoyed doing 2,000 Trees. Festivals are always just fun.
Yeah, I love them.
Pay me to just hang out and watch. We did the first Riot Fest in Toronto when the Replacements played.
Oh, that's the best.
That was a great time. That was an odd Riot Fest too. It was the first one in Canada.
It was the best one by far.
I think it was the best one.
No contest. One stage. This is what festivals get wrong. Is they have they have these giant bloated lineups with okay, we're gonna have Chance the Rapper, but also the Hollywood Vampires. You gotta streamline these lineups so that they're actually appealing to. I really think you got to specialize them, or else they're too big. They're gonna fail.
They're just trying to market to as many fans as
doesn't
they
work though,
can
because there's too many festivals. I mean, not obviously this year because it's the apocalypse, but the the general thing is that there's only so many concerts or festivals that people are going to go to a year, right?
Yeah.
So
I hate attending festivals. You couldn't pay me to just go to a festival. I like playing them because you have extra access.
The last one that I went to was the one that you guys opened that show. And funny story, did you know that Teenage Kicks originally got offered your slot and they said no? Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Peter I was just hanging out with Peter Van Helvert.
Yeah, Peter was we got offered the gig to open for Iggy and the Stooges and the Replacements and the Weaker Thans, and he said something about how it's just like, we don't want to burn that Toronto play or something like that. It's like, bro, you could have played with Paul Westerberg.
Oh my God. And like, what is great about
It's great.
what was
story.
great about that show wasn't playing it. It was being able to be in the VIP area watching the Replacements play.
Their first show in 23 years.
Feet away from the stage. I was arms in arms with the Flatliners.
Yeah.
Just singing every fucking word, just drinking beer. Like that's why you do it. You don't do it to, it's fun to play. Yes, it's super fun to play. But I don't think when we said yes to that, it was like to play. It was like, holy shit, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I get to, okay. And we heard the Replacements sound check was super long that day.
Was it?
Yeah, it was really, really long.
Did they do it themselves?
Yes. Yeah, they did. For at least the part that I saw when we got there. It was very good.
I'll never forget that show because that was their first show in 22 years, and like the amount of anticipation for them actually playing that show was just like it was. I've never been in a crowd that was like that before, God. And like you looked around, and it was like every musician, every rock musician in Southern Ontario was there, and like. The Titus Andronicus, Patrick Stickles was next to me.
Titus
and
Andronicus.
All these, it was a crazy atmosphere of people. And I remember the first glimpse of the Replacements, 22 years, because they had been really careful about not posting any videos or put pictures or anything. First thing was a cigarette butt flying out of the wings that Paul Westerberg flicked that landed right at the base of his mic stand, and him walking out like this. And then
so good.
Everybody from that moment on, it was the loudest singing at a concert I've ever heard. Imagine what it would have been like to be them.
I wish I was sober for all those things. Like, I wish I quit drinking years and years and years ago, because, like, I wish I had a clearer memory of all of that.
Well, you still got to open for the Replacements.
Oh, it was great. I can't believe I got to text Peter.
Yeah, maybe I could be like botching a couple of the details there, but he did mention that the Kicks got offered that show.
I love Peter. We were just at Gage Park the other day, had a nice chat.
Nice.
Hang out. He's a fantastic musician. If you guys are like rock and roll music, Peter
check
Van
out
Halbert,
Teenage Kicks and Peter Van Halbert's solo material. It's absolutely fantastic.
What about you? What's been one of your highlights in the Nil sphere of it's been a great couple of years for you guys.
Playing with The Who was really, really good.
Yeah.
Meeting Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey on my birthday was a pretty good one.
That was the Festival de Quebec?
Yeah, D'été, yeah.
That festival's a fantastic
festival. A crazy festival.
I fucking love that festival.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Have Heart dropped out or something. It was the day I signed on with Kreeft as our booking agent. The day after, he hit me up and he was like, "Hey, this band
I got a gig
out.
for you.
Do you want to do it?" And I'm like, yeah.
Which day did you guys play on? Who else was playing?
It was like some pop punk weird hardcore day. It was we took not Have Heart, Support the Brave Only the Brave maybe. Some band I had never listened to before and whose fans
they weren't that
but well, we showed up.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I didn't have our band van yet at that time, so I was renting for gigs. But I had my minivan, my Chevy Venture with no AC, only one window rolled down, and I had no seats
all
for
the way
it.
to Quebec.
But I didn't have any seats or anything in it. I only had 2 seats in there because I used it for just moving stuff around. So Kreeft was like, "Hey, can you do this?" I had no band, had nobody that could do it. He's like, "It's tomorrow." So I messaged Brandon. I'm like, "Dude, do you want to go to Quebec tomorrow?" He's like, "No."
Yeah, absolutely.
I was like, "Let me rephrase this. Will you come to Quebec with me?" And he's like, "Yeah, I guess so." And so I grabbed him, Justice. You didn't play that show with us?
No.
So it would have been.
That was 2017, right?
Yeah.
2018?
2017.
Okay, yeah.
I think maybe Nardi did. Nardi maybe came with us. Me.
Did you have a second guitar player or just Justice?
I think it was.
Was Riley there?
Oh, and Riley. And Peter. No, did Peter Van Halbert do it? Maybe Peter Van Halbert did it.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I think we went as a 5-piece, and they gave us we got whatever the bigger band than us that couldn't make it over got. So we had 3 beautiful hotel rooms.
It's amazing.
Nice pay. But I had to go scramble to figure out how to get there. I called every rental place I could. Nobody had a minivan that I could rent. So I had to go to an auto wreckers and find seats to put in the van with seatbelts that day so we could make it to that show the next day.
That's hilarious.
In my 20-year-old minivan that barely survived city drive. You know, that Chevy Venture minivan was the greatest thing I ever.
Yeah.
We drove across.
It's a Survivor.
It was Single Mother's first tour van. We drove across.
Was it the red one?
The red one, yeah.
one, yeah.
We drove across North America in 2012 in that minivan.
Wow.
For our very first basement tour. And it still made it to Quebec that other day, which is great.
Wow. And speaking of kind of adversarial situations in a band, is there anything that really stands out to you in terms of like a specific show or even like a full tour where you get asked to be the opening act and you just feel like, God damn, this is a tough crowd, but like night after night, have you ever had one of those?
I mean, there were some times on that Quicksand tour, I think, that they're like those legacy acts, they very rarely.
That's a tough
people
crowd,
don't really
yeah.
care about what you're doing. We did an opening slot for this band, Ender Shikari, which I'd never really listened to, but their manager liked Single Mothers. And Ian, he's a great guy. His partner is from London, Ontario. So he had hit me up a couple times about Ender Shikari stuff, and we'd always just been like, I don't know how that would work out. But we ended up doing this tour, a very interesting band. I don't know if you're familiar with them at all. I think they had an early screamo presence, but that's completely morphed into this weird pop synth, just an odd grouping of genres for music. And I have a huge respect for that. I guess they're really big over in the UK and in like Russia and stuff. And they do okay over in the States. So we did that tour with another band called Milk Teeth. And we were in the middle, and Milk Teeth's driver, merch person, came up to me after a few shows, and he was like, I gotta say, my absolute favorite part of this tour has been watching the crowd as you guys play and watching their faces and just trying to figure out who you are and why you're on this show. And he was like, he came up to me one day and he's like, I literally watched this girl's face go from like smiling to when you guys started to just like disbelief and then watched her walk out. I was like, that makes sense.
Yeah. Thanks for letting me know. I appreciate it. That's
I mean, we're not for our live stage thing is just evolved as members come and go and things change, and like it's not for everybody. Like, and that's fine with me. I am who I am.
I am who I am. I have that print. It's a great print.
You?
My mom actually has it.
I see your mom every once in a while.
Yeah.
I don't know if she recognizes me. I've tried to grab her attention a couple times walking down the street, like with a little wave, but I never seem to catch her attention.
Do you have the hat and the glasses on?
Sometimes, yeah. I have my costume on.
Yeah, it's a little. There's an element of Weekend at Bernie's when you've got the when you got the sunglasses and the hat on and the AirPods. But I'll tell her to keep her eyes peeled.
Just say I say hello.
Thompson. If there's, you've already kind of answered this. I think this will be my last kind of general question for you, unless you have anything else to add after that. But why rock and roll? Why do it?
You know what? I never thought of it as a choice. It just happened organically. I think like growing up with a single mom, poor, and somewhat like angry. I was a very angry guy. I did not get along very well with my stepdad. Like I just gravitated towards it. And I think part of just the accessibility of rock and like rap was always growing up. I remember the first time I heard rap, I was like, these guys are bragging. Like, why would anybody want to hear people brag? Maybe that was my grandmother raising me, but I was like, this is just, nobody's going to like this. And then obviously, I was very wrong, but it was very much about like, look what I have. And like, I'm better than you is the message I got at first from mainstream rap in the late 90s. And rock and roll was just not that. It was like more communal, more like introverted. I've always been like more introverted than not. And like, I think a good rock and roll song that makes you feel is so important to the way I processed emotions as a kid and like helped me figure a lot of myself out that it just happened. I think it was just very natural. There's a poetry to rock and roll that I just gravitate towards and I like. And it's aggressive. It can be aggressive and soft and make you think, and it can also just make you dumb. Like there's certain rock and roll that is for a type of person that just wants to turn their brain off and drink a bunch of Miller, and that's fine. It's just one of those genres that have been around for so long and has reinvented itself so many times that if you catch a good songwriter at the right time, you know, it can change your life. And that's just what happened to me, I guess. And I'm thankful for it.
Well, hell yeah, brother.
Yeah.
Hail rock
What
and
about
roll.
you? Why is rock and roll?
I certainly empathize with what you just said, that that wasn't really a choice. I'm just here right now.
Yeah.
Like I guess there's been a series of like small choices along the way and stuff, but it's just been like I also really like that Guided by Voices line that I mentioned earlier. Holds it to like a hilarious amount of truth for me. The whole I dig is bottomless, but nothing else will set me free.
It is funny, like choosing the grave site and digging the grave willfully. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it is. This COVID stuff just shows how fragile everything is,
Yeah.
and it's like there are a lot of better choices you can make for security and things like that. But it depends what you value in life. If you value experience and travel and doing what you want, then you know that's what you gotta do, and you gotta put everything else to the side.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely sympathize with the people that, you know, both of us have known that have kind of like that have exited a life of music or a life of full-time music for like by their own choice or by not by their own choice. But I sympathize with those decisions and those pathways. But at the same time, like it wouldn't matter how successful I was doing this, I just can't stop. I just even on the days where it drives me the most crazy, like and I feel like whether it's like, you know, the other facets of the whole thing, like the things they don't tell you about when you buy your first Squire Strat pack,
Oh my God,
or whether it's just like being like the pressure to deliver or whatever it is, or touring, and like the worst day of rock and roll is better than the best day I ever had of being a butcher.
Yeah, you were a butcher.
Yeah.
That's terrible. That's a good way to put it. Yeah, actually, the worst days of rock and roll are still some of the best days, probably. And I think that's also, there's a thing about doing it on your own terms, doing what you want. Like, I don't have a ton of self-admiration, but when I do look back on the last 5-6 years, and I go, you know what? I've done the last 2 Single Mothers records exactly how I wanted to. Maybe that was a mistake. I definitely made mistakes on the way and things like that. But I kind of eliminated all outside influence. And at the end of the day, I'm proud of that alone. Like, because they don't tell you that it's not just music. The music and the music industry are 2 complete different oddities.
Yeah.
Like they're 2 complete different things to navigate. And they don't tell you that growing up when you buy your first rock and roll CD. Yeah, there's some days that I wake up and I'm like, God, this is terrible. Like, I don't like this. And I can think back to being lost in the woods, almost in tears because it's about to become night and I have no idea where I parked the van and I'm still 2 hours away and I'm like, I don't have any camping stuff. I'm soaking wet. Like, there were times I fucking cried in the woods once because I thought I was stuck there. You know?
That was the end.
And I think back to those times, I'm like, this is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
It's funny how quickly you adopt and like get comfortable. But then COVID stuff hits and then you're like, oh yeah, this is, you know, fragile and you must take it all in. Who knew like our last show that we would play for the next long time would be in Eugene, Oregon, you know?
Yeah.
But that show was sick as hell.
Yeah.
I'm glad, you know?
Yeah, it's
Anyways.
I think like, you know, the thing that's become the most dominant in my mind from this current vantage point, you know, it's often not it's not survival of the most talented or even like some of the best bands are just gone. It's just that it's survival of the most adaptable and the bands that are like, all right, well, this terrible thing happened. All right, well, let's get back in the van. We'll keep going. And, you know, it's the bands that, you know, they did they did like half a tour and they're like, you know, this sucks. Like
yeah. Yeah.
You know.
I tell a few of my friends all the time, like writing a great song and being successful have very few things in common.
Yeah.
Like there's so much more that goes into it. You know, the right time, the right place, the right things, the right like the right streaming services, like the right social media,
The right
presence,
algorithm.
like all of that stuff. Yeah, it's like you can be a fantastic. Some of my favorite songwriters, nobody like Corey Brandon, very few people know, and he's one of the best songwriters in North America. And it's like all the most successful songwriters I know listen to him, love him, but he's still. Somebody told me he's still lucky to fill a 100-cap room. And these guys are all guys that, can fill 10,000 cap, 1,000 cap rooms all the time, saying like Corey Brandon's the best. And I think about that very often when I'm like, I feel bad for some of my friends that are just so good and that threw in the towel because they couldn't navigate the industry side of things or didn't want to. And
yeah, I think, it's obviously even rock and roll, and it can at times have a bit of like a macho exterior kind of thing, but at everyone's core who's doing this, we are all whiny little sensitive people.
Very whiny.
That's why we're doing this, because baby, we just got to dance. But
that's a good way to wrap this up.
It's and so it's I guess I would say if there's any piece of advice out there to the youth or to anybody of any age who loves rock and roll or any kind of music and wants to do it, I would say that use this whole thing, this COVID thing, as a wake-up call to remind you that do whatever you want to do, as long as it's not fucking with other people and their personal freedoms or anything like that. If you want to do rock and roll or play fusion clarinet, then fucking do that. Fuck your stupid job at the bank, or do both. I don't know. If you can.
Try and find balance.
And I guess that's a good point to wrap it up. But Drew, you're one of my best friends, one of the most talented guys that I know.
Thank you very much, my friend.
And I love you very much.
Same.
Thanks for being on the podcast. And,
Thank you for being in Single Mothers so many times.
My pleasure.
And Foundation.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. Luke was also in the first Foundation shows.
Shout out to the Foundation. Where can people check you out?
Spotify, the Drew Thomson Foundation, Single Mothers, Instagram, the Drew Thomson Foundation, and SM Worldwide, Google and things like that.
Ask Jeeves.
Ask Jeeves, yes. It's the Drew Thomson Foundation. Oh, on Twitter, Drew Thomson Jr.
Hail, hail, rock and roll. Take care for now, everybody. Cheers.